Okay, so this is the North Andover Affordable Housing Trust meeting of January 18, 2022. Pursuant to Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021, this meeting will be conducted via remote means only. Specific information and the general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and or parties with the right and or requirement to attend this meeting can be found on the town's website at www.northandoverma.gov. For this meeting, members of the public who wish to watch the meeting may do so on their televisions by tuning to Comcast Channel 8, Verizon Channel 26, or online at www.northandovercam.org. Every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. In the event that we are unable to do so, despite best efforts, we will post on the town website an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. Okay, so with that said, why don't we do a quick roll call? I will just call the person's first name. If you could just state your full name after that. So Richard.
Let me go to me first. Here, I was on mute. Here.
Okay, so that's Richard Valancourt. Lori Burzlow.
Here.
George Kohler.
Here.
Roger.
Here.
Joan.
Joan Fitzgibbons here.
Rob.
Rob Bernardin's here.
And Christopher G is also here. All right, so that's the roll call. Thank you, everyone. Good seeing you all. Happy New Year to all of you. And thank you for your flexibility meeting remotely, given the current circumstances. So I think it's probably best, because we have a bit of a tight deadline. We have a lot of things to discuss, that we just go straight to the agenda. So the first item is to approve the minutes of November 16, 2021. The agenda was passed around by Lori ahead of this meeting. So if folks agree to approve the minutes, I think we should probably put it up for vote.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And I'm going to recuse myself since I was not at that last meeting.
Okay. With the recusing, I heard 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 ayes.
I had my mute on. I vote aye.
Okay, so it's a unanimous yes, except for Dick, who is recusing himself. Thank you. Okay, next item on the agenda is the Inclusionary Zoning Bylaw, which Jane has been working on for, I'm not sure how long you've been working on it, Jane, but it's come into fruition. It looks great. I had a chance to take a look at it and provide some comments. And I don't want to put you on the spot, Jane, but are there any words you want to share before we get started? You're on mute.
So nothing in particular to share, other than if you'd like me to provide a high-level overview of the bylaw, I'd be happy to do so. Essentially, what I'm hoping as an outcome of this meeting is that if the board is favorable to allow Christopher to come before the planning board at our next meeting, February 1st, and kind of share the sentiment of the Affordable Housing Trust and make a recommendation to the planning board in terms of a recommendation to town meeting. The planning board has already approved at least initiating an article for the warrant to be heard at town meeting. They have not gotten into the weeds, I would say, at this time, but going forward, every planning board agenda will be considering this draft.
Gene, does that mean that the planning board will not be talking about inclusionary zoning tonight at tonight's meeting?
Nope, it's on the agenda for tonight.
So they will be talking.
I don't know into what detail. What I do plan to inform them is that I attended this meeting and shared the draft with this group. And again, as an outcome, hopefully that Christopher will come before the planning board at their next meeting to share the sentiment of this trust.
Yeah, okay.
Jean, can you just like give a real quick,
Yep.
like
Yep,
what this is?
Yep, essentially exclusionary zoning. There are about 140 municipalities that have a bylaw in some format. They're all unique. They're all a little bit different. But I've certainly done a ton of research for other communities and drafted something that I think is suitable for North Andover. The ultimate goal of an inclusionary zoning is to create affordable housing that would qualify for the town's subsidized housing inventory. As you're likely aware, we're required to have a 10% SHI percentage to the total units in North Andover. Up until the 2020 census came out, we were roughly 8.7% with roughly 950 affordable units on our SHI listing. With 2020 census, we've dropped closer to 8%. So we're definitely going in the wrong direction. Recently, we've had several multifamily developments permitted through the planning board. However, because we don't have inclusionary zoning, they were all market rate rental developments. And so what this bylaw aims to do is to increase our SHI percentage. It's not going to get us to the 10% by any means. It will take years and years, but it is a really good maintenance tool that once we get to that 10%, this type of bylaw helps to maintain the 10%. So that being said, it is a town-wide bylaw. So some communities just do a district that would allow multifamily housing in one certain location within their community, and they have an inclusionary bylaw to go along with that district. This envisions the whole town. So whether it goes out on 114 or goes to the Mills or goes out on Osgood Street, if there's a multifamily development that has 8 or more units, so that's the trigger. Once a developer proposes 8 or more units, it would trigger the inclusionary zoning bylaw, and they'd have to provide a 15% affordable number. And so obviously they round up. So from 8 to 11, if I remember correctly, that would only generate 1 unit. 12 to 18 generates 2 units, and then it just incrementally goes up from there. That being said, there's some provisions for building on-site, building off-site, or payment in lieu, and that payment in lieu would go to the Affordable Housing Trust. And the bylaw details the criteria for that. So the planning board, if there was going to be a payment in lieu, the planning board has to make a finding that it makes sense. And it also brings the Affordable Housing Trust. So the planning board could hire a consultant to look at the financials. They could ask the applicant to come before this trust and see if there's any creative alternatives to keeping them on site, or instead of a payment in lieu to actually construct them. So that is, I won't say it's unique, but not everybody offers those 3 alternatives. The chair has indicated he's supportive of all 3, just because it certainly would, the money would go to the trust for any purpose that you already are authorized. So it wouldn't have to be to create an affordable unit, but it might be your down payment assistance program. It could be any means that you have you're authorized to support.
Does the developer get to choose, or is it the planning board?
Planning board.
So the planning board could say, we're not going to accept a payment in lieu. You have to build your percentage.
Yep. So
Okay.
if it doesn't make sense to the planning board, that they have to make a finding that it's justifiable. And
Right.
so-
So we could ask, like, we could give an opinion if something were to come up
Yeah.
to the planning board as to why we don't think a payment in lieu is better than getting the affordable units. Okay.
But the developer can make the case that it's uneconomic to build the units on site.
They can make the case, George, but in there, there's,
They have to convince the planning board, but
and the planning board can hire a third-party consultant to review those
Yeah.
financials that they're providing. And the planning board can ask them to come before the trust to see if there's other creative means to make it happen.
I have 2 questions. Can I ask them? One question is, at the September 9th meeting, when the representative from MHP was there, she said that single-family subdivisions were excluded. That's not true for this draft, is it?
Yes, it is.
How?
Yes, it is. So she cautioned us that there's been some court cases. Suzanne, town council, has reviewed that. Subdivisions fall under Mass General Law, not necessarily the zoning bylaw. And so, Suzanne, we have removed subdivisions.
Boy, what, I guess, can you tell me what section it's in or what the words are? Because I sure didn't see that when I was reading it. But anyway.
You sure didn't see what? That subdivisions have been removed?
Well, what in these words say that this does not apply to a single family home subdivision development?
I don't think it says that.
Well, then we're not, I mean, we're
Yeah,
not
no,
in single family homes then.
I'll be happy to follow you up.
Yeah,
Follow up
okay.
with you, George, and I'll show it to you, but it's under the applicability, if I remember correctly. So what, there's a certain development that this is applicable to? But I'll have to revisit it and I can get back to you.
Gene, I think
Well,
it's on the third page of the draft under 195-8.97 applicability, section A. And
Yeah.
it says applicable developments include those that are proposed to contain single-family homes within a planned residential development, two-family, multifamily dwelling units, continuing care residential center, retirement centers, and independent elderly housing.
So the planned residential development is kind of a subset of a subdivision. That is by special permit. And that special permit is what's going to trigger it to come before planning for the inclusionary zoning if it's more than 8 units.
okay, I'm not arguing with the fact that we don't want to include single family home developments in this. I just don't think it's there. I mean, this says that it applies specifically to some things. And just because single family homes isn't there doesn't mean it doesn't apply to single family homes.
It depends how those single family homes are being constructed.
Well,
If they're constructed with subdivision rules and regulations, they wouldn't be applicable. If they're constructed under the planned residential bylaw, then they would. We also have provisions for site plan. You can do some single family homes under a planned residential development through a site plan or a subdivision. In either case, this bylaw would be triggered.
well, then my other question is that in the very first paragraph, it says that affordable housing produced through this bylaw shall comply with Chapter 40B. Well, that's not true either because Chapter 40B requires at least 20% units, and this only requires 15%. I was wondering why is there such a requirement? I mean,
It's if the 40B goes on to specify certain sections of 40B, 20 through 24.
oh,
George, I think, I don't know if I'd be speaking out of turn, Gene, and correct me if I'm wrong. I think that reference was put in to specifically provide that units would count on the subsidized housing inventory. I think the 20% that you're talking about, George, would specifically only apply to comp permit projects. But they're not, this bylaw doesn't contemplate comprehensive permit. This is just
well, I didn't check sections 20 through 24, so I just saw the 40B.
That's to just, again, I think Chris made it clear, but that's to make sure that they're going to comply and be eligible for the SHI listing.
But that requirement is certainly stated multiple times, so it doesn't have to be stated here.
Okay.
Well, anyway, all right.
But I think, George, if we could just continue on that topic, of whether single-family homes count or not under this bylaw. So, Gene, I think what you're saying is that the determination is that if it's not within a planned residential development, it's not within the purview of the planning board to decide on whether to grant a special permit or not. Is that
Right.
I mean, is that the only reason?
Yep.
Okay. So I guess so in other words, this bylaw wouldn't apply to single family homes that could be built as of right. Is that, I guess, the
Well,
count?
wait a minute. If a developer gets a big parcel of land and plans to build 20 single-family homes, this bylaw doesn't apply to it, or does?
It does not.
Yeah, it does not.
If they're conforming with subdivision rules and regulations,
Yeah.
it does not. And we were cautioned at that same meeting, we were cautioned that it could be litigated and it might not stand up. And so, again,
What do you mean if we tried to apply this to a single family home division, it could be litigated?
Yeah.
Yeah, because they're not going to litigate it if it doesn't apply.
But I think you just have to look at it. I mean, town council has reviewed this. Just because something's not stated in there doesn't mean that it does or it doesn't apply. There are other factors to take into consideration. You don't lay out every single, I don't know, scenario, I guess, in there.
and we have not had a subdivision. I think we've had more than 8, but not more than 10 in the last 11 years that I'm aware of. So granted, that doesn't mean it's not going to happen again. There's certainly land available and someday it will be developed, but it certainly hasn't been the predominant type of development lately.
I have a question, Jean, if I could. Thank you for all the work on this. This is an impressive document. Could you elaborate a little bit on the fees in lieu calculation? I understand that's quite a controversial subject across the state.
Yeah, and for that reason, we left it really broad. I mean, at the time, there'll be data to look at that the board can assess, and the board at that time will make the assessment. So it is really broad. There's all kinds of calculations that we found, but they were really complex and could be outdated by the time we get to them.
So Rob, just to kind of discuss this a little bit more, I personally also am concerned generally about fees in lieu provisions, because that would give the developer an out, and instead of developing affordable housing, you could just pay the town. But as drafted, there would have to be a showing that developing the affordable unit within the project on site would be economically unfeasible. And I think that determination needs to be made, Jane, by the planning board. Is that correct?
Yeah,
The final determination would be them, but like I said, they can hire a third-party consultant. They can seek input from this trust. But if I understand correct, Rob, I think you're asking what is the specific formula?
Yeah, I'm just curious about the thinking behind it. It could be potential. I mean, I guess I have less of an issue with the payment in lieu option as long as it's a fair price. I think that was the seed money for how the trust got started, if I understand it correctly.
Yep.
From,
And so we left it that what will be reviewed is regional construction and sales reports at the time of this development. And then the planning board will make the final determination of acceptable value. So it could be a different calculation each project, just depending on circumstances. But we didn't specify the exact calculation.
Okay. And the assumption is the planning board would be, well, it just seems like there are a lot of external variables in that handling. Is this what the regulating authorities generally support this type of wording now? DHCD and MHP and the people who put these together all the time?
They've seen this draft and they didn't comment one way or the other on that piece of it. Like I've said, I've seen all different types of formulas, and so I think they've been supportive of all kinds for them to get as far as they have into somebody's bylaw.
Rob, another piece that I personally appeases me is that, as Gina stated earlier, they would have to come to the Affordable Housing Trust to explore alternatives. At the end of the day, if a fee is paid out, it would come to us. But if we're at the table, if we're invited to the table, we may be able to be in a position to say, well, forget the fee in lieu. How about we put up a sum of money for the development so that affordable units can go on site. So it does give us that option to come to the table. which may prevent the need to determine what the financial basis should be to come up with a fee in lieu number.
Right. Yeah, that certainly is encouraging that there'd be a broad-based discussion on it. Yeah, I guess I'm wondering from a developer's perspective whether there'd be some value to specifying a certain amount so that they can calculate it into their projections, their pro formas, their financial projections to see whether the deal is viable, as opposed to coming to us with a set of numbers that's going to be very hard for us just to kind of drop down and confirm the accuracy of the numbers. But just a thought. I mean, I think the overall strongly supportive of the overall concept, and I just curious about that piece of it.
Okay. Well, certainly it's early in draft mode. I'll certainly revisit it and see if, and to be honest, we haven't got the planning board's input on that as well. So I'll keep it top of mind, Rob, and I'll revisit it.
Okay, good. Thank you.
If folks have any other thoughts or questions?
Well, another question then is how would this apply to the proposed Royal Crest development? They have a 40B component, they have a townhome component, and then they have their market rate rental component. Would this apply to the townhome and the market rate rental component, or does the 40B component get them off the hook as far as this bylaw is concerned, if this bylaw were in effect?
So the draft zoning for the Royal Crest,
Well, how would this apply?
the draft zoning says it wouldn't apply, and the reasons are in the other bylaw. And George, I just don't have that one open in front of me, but if I remember correctly, because we're targeting the other one to qualify and satisfy the requirements of the housing choice legislation. But their formula.
Well, you're saying that the other bylaw explicitly says that the inclusionary zoning bylaw, if it comes into existence, will not apply to this development or to this zoning district.
Right, because the amount of affordable housing units proposed in that development actually exceeds our exclusionary zoning requirement. So
Yeah, well, yeah, right, because it's rental.
it's rental, so it's 25% there. So they actually far exceed it, but it's also,
Well, but 100% of the 40B units count.
right, all 385. But the affordable, the ones we actually get is, if I remember correct, 96, and
Yeah.
our 15% would have only required 76 or 75.
No, but I was wondering, like, for instance, the townhomes are 15% of the townhomes going to have to be affordable.
No,
And I mean, this bylaw doesn't say that, but if you say the other draft bylaw says that, then okay. That's the answer to my question. Never mind.
Do you want, I'll make a motion to whatever it is we need Chris to do, to go to the planning board and represent the Affordable Housing Trust regarding supporting the inclusionary zoning bylaw.
I'll second that.
Okay, so the motion, Laurie, then is for me to attend the February 1st planning board meeting to echo our general support of the inclusionary zoning bylaw.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll do I'll do an individual roll call this time, just because I think that might be clearer. But Laurie, I'm sorry, you set the motion. George, yay or nay?
Yay.
Thank you. Roger?
Yay.
Joan? You're on mute, Joan.
Joan Fitzgibbons, yay.
Thank you. And Dick, if you're
Dick Valancourt, yes.
okay. Rob, well, yeah, Rob.
Robert Arden, yes.
Laurie,
Laurie Burzlaff, yes.
Chris is also a yay, so unanimous.
Chris, if I could just clarify one answer there to George. So this bylaw, George, we cross-referenced that stipulation in both of them. So in this one, under applicability B, it states this bylaw shall not apply to the MBTA Housing Choice Mixed Use Overlay District. And that's the overlay district we're looking at for Rural Crest.
Oh, okay.
And it's in the other one cross-referenced in the same manner.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
I didn't realize that MBTA housing choice mixed use overlay was the thinking for Royal Crest. Okay.
It is currently, so it's still a work in progress as well.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, Gene, thank you so much.
Okay, you're welcome.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Gene.
Thanks, Jean.
All right,
Thank
I'm
you,
off the
Jean.
planning board.
Hey, great job, Gene. I know this is something that people have been talking about for a long time, so this is really great that we're getting this moving forward.
Thanks, Dick. Okay, so next item on the agenda is the MHP Housing Trust Technical Assistance Program. On the agenda, I had provided a link to a webpage that Laurie had shared. So apparently every year MHP, did they start this last year, Laurie? It's a fairly new program.
Yeah, they started it last year. We applied last year. Obviously, we didn't get it.
Yep. So it's to receive technical assistance from MHP for administering some program with the Affordable Housing Trust, or any, really, I think, to receive technical assistance for any aspect. The timing wasn't really on our side because the original deadline was to submit applications by tomorrow. But Laurie, I think you said did they extend the application by a few days?
Till Friday, yeah.
So we do have a few more days to submit an application. I think really the general question is if we're interested in submitting an application, what would the application be for?
Yeah, I mean, we kind of struggled with this last year too. I don't think there's anything that right now that.
Okay, can you remind us what's in scope for it, or what are our options for MHP?
So I'll read a portion of their application. So basically the scope is to identify either an Affordable Housing Trust Fund goal or project the community can make reasonable progress on during an 8-month period. So that's really the general scope. What goal or project we can make reasonable progress on. And to describe the assistance that can help move this goal or project forward. Laurie, I don't recall what exactly we applied for last year, but I guess in retrospect, if we didn't have a down payment assistance program, that's something we could have asked assistance for. Setting up rental assistance program could have been something we could ask for. One thing that came to mind when Laurie shared this initially was, could we ask them for assistance in setting up some kind of partnership program where there's outreach, to the local developer community that, we're willing to partner to provide potentially funding for projects that might be proposed in our town that has affordability as a component. But that's
Last year we applied to help us implement the home buyer assistance program.
Yeah, which we did.
So to be honest with you, I think the time that it's going to take, unless somebody is willing to dedicate the next 3 days to this or 2 days to this, there's nothing that really, I think if we didn't have our housing protection plan or we didn't have the trust set up, or we didn't have, our programs all. The only thing I can think of is something related to Fountain Drive, but we don't have enough information on that yet. Like maybe technical assistance in finding financing for Fountain Drive, but we don't have a shovel-ready project. So it says you need to have a shovel-ready project. So I guess this would be a good thing to apply for next year if they offer it. If we're at that point where, we have something ready to go. I don't know.
Do you anticipate that this grant will be available next year also? I mean, is it a 3-year program or something like that, or is it just year by year? And
I don't know. I think they just did it last year and thought it was a good program, so they did it again. I don't know if it's something they're going to do every year.
the money didn't run out last year, so they're doing it this year, and who knows if it'll run out this year, huh? But, well,
At the least, maybe this is just something we kind of, put on the back burner and just, as Fountain Drive comes alive or potentially other projects come alive, that, we consider this option next year in case it is made available. Laurie, was the for last year? Was the timing a little different? Was it during the spring or summertime that the application went out?
I'm not sure. I can look and see what the date of the application was. But I will tell you, if you look at the two that won it last year, they were both basically creating, one was a brand new trust that needed help in sort of figuring out what they were supposed to do. And the other one was creating a trust.
do you have any idea how many applications there were? Two out of how many applications were successful?
They said it last year. I don't know, but we submitted this application in March.
Okay.
March 1st, it was dated. So yeah, I guess there was more time last year.
All right.
So it sounds like we really don't have a project in mind, and we really don't have the resources to try to get this done within the next 2 days. Really, right? It kind of backs us up against the wall.
That's what I heard.
Yes.
Although, I mean, it does allude to goals. So, maybe not something as concrete as a project, but.
Well, and that's fine. I mean, if we have something that is, that we can articulate tonight, and it's something that we really feel is important, then yeah. But if we don't, and we don't want to put someone on it for 2 days, and there's really, it's something that is not, something that we're really passionate about.
And
My
who's
thought.
going to do the application?
Right, there you go.
Right?
Well, if we have any, if there is something we want to apply for, I'm happy to work on the application, but it doesn't seem like there's anything that we could think of to apply for. And, if that's the case, maybe we just remember that this is hopefully going to be available next year, and we can plan for that.
I mean, I think if you're going towards goals, I don't know if we've established specific goals this year. But last year we had that goal of starting that down payment assistance program. So that was easy to say, this is what we're looking at. Like I said, we didn't get it anyway. But I think like one of our main goals is the Fountain Drive project, but there's nothing we can apply for that right now. Like I said, if we had CPC funding and it was ready to go and we needed to find other avenues, to help, support that project and needed technical assistance, like Rob's been able to give us somewhat with the financing and how to find money and things like that. I think that would be a great application, but we don't qualify for that this year. We don't even know what's happening.
Okay. Any other thoughts on this topic, or should we move on?
Yes, let's move on.
I think we can move on.
Okay, thank you. So next on the agenda is whether we have any updates on Fountain Drive.
I suspect that's on my plate since I'm the contact person. I have heard nothing on that subject. So I suppose I should reach back out to the folks. Lori, thank you. You sent me contact information, so I'll reach out. I think they had thought by the end of the year they might have the report in. So I don't have any update, and I'll reach out after we get off here to see if there's any updates.
My guess is there probably isn't, because I noticed today on the calendar that they have a meeting on the 20th, and I did not see Fountain Drive listed on their agenda. So my guess is they don't, but yeah, it'd be great if you could see if the report was even done yet.
Okay. So,
I'm sorry, what report? They're going to write a report, or what? Who's writing a report?
They commissioned a study to check to assess the viability of developing the Fountain Drive area.
Okay.
Is my recollection? Is that right, Lori? I hope I haven't.
Yeah, we paid for it.
I'm interested in hearing what they have to say. There's some pretty exciting things going on in some of the neighboring communities with refinancing and rehabbing existing public housing. For instance, Manchester, I think, is issuing an RFP soon, which is seeking a developer to work with the housing authority, the town, and DHCD to demolish some housing and build a larger number of mixed income housing, including replacement of the existing housing stock and some affordable housing.
See, that would be a great application for technical assistance.
Yeah, I think I understand there are a number of communities. It's something that DHCD has been doing in Boston in the past, and now they're looking to do it in suburbia, and it has the strong support of suburbia of DHCD. So it might be an interesting option to have some discussions.
As an outsider to this now, or I'm not involved at all, but I suspect that all of those people are busy and they're just really not spending time. Am I being overly harsh or unfair?
I think we're waiting for a third party who we're paying. He's a contracted third party to come back with a report on the viability of it.
Oh, the consultant is writing the report.
Correct.
Oh, good. And who's the consultant?
You can look back in the notes from a couple meetings ago. We approved the payment.
With the name of the consultant? All right. Well, no, I'll check after the meeting.
I do remember that we did just talk about a consultant.
Yeah, I thought it was a generic consultant. I don't remember we identified one.
I have something from EBI Consulting.
Yeah, it's EBI. It's the same ones that did the big map. The original.
Oh, okay. The reason I'm asking is because, I'm the trust representative to the Master Plan Implementation Committee. I wouldn't be surprised if all of you had forgotten that fact, but that is a fact. And the Master Plan Implementation Committee is looking at the individual strategies in the master plan. All the recommendations of the master plan are called strategies. And there's one strategy that says increase housing for those earning less than 30%. And it identified the lead agency as the Affordable Housing Trust. And well, you know, we talked about this quite a few meetings ago. And Lori is the one that learned or came up with the idea of the Housing Authority building this housing for people earning under 30%. But anyways, I'm interested because of the Master Plan Implementation Committee. We're supposedly keeping track of how the town is doing on those strategies, and this is a strategy. So.
Okay, I'll keep you posted as soon as I hear from them and update the trust. I'll keep you posted also, George.
Yeah, well, thanks. Thanks.
Well, I think your update is where we've paid for a feasibility study.
Well,
And
I mean, the update though has been the same for about I don't know how long, how many months. We're waiting. The housing
but it's
authority.
out of our control. I mean, it's not something.
Well, I know. I understand. I just don't want to be totally passive, but figuring out where to draw the line, I don't know.
George, what was the last, if you remember, what was the last update you provided to that committee?
Well, yeah, that's it. I really haven't presented a formal update. We're we're developing a website that will be available to the public, and the public will be able to go to this website and will be able to see all of the strategy through a series of links. We'll be able to see all the strategies. And so I've drafted response for the housing strategies. There's 10 of them. And haven't submitted it yet to Dan Beckley. So it's not formal, and the website isn't public yet. But my draft just says that the Housing Authority is considering a development for people earning no more than 30% of the AMI. And so when that draft, if that draft gets approved or something like that, and when that website goes public, then it will be sort of a report. Things haven't advanced anywhere so that this is any kind of an emergency or anything like that. It's just something that I figured is sort of in my purview and I'm interested in. And at this point, I guess you can just consider it idiosyncratic of me and you can ignore it, but just sort of explaining why I'm asking.
No, not at all, George. But, you know, I guess just on the agendas going forward, Rob, we'll just keep, you know, possible updates to Fountain Drive as an agenda item.
Well, I would appreciate that. And if you didn't have Fountain Drive on there, I'd send you an email asking that it be added to the agenda. So
that'll be one less work for you, George.
Okay. Thank you.
I'll give you the consultant's number, George, if you want to call and yell at him.
Yeah, all right. Yeah.
Okay, so I think this next topic was kind of hand in hand with Fountain Drive, and I'm not sure if there's a discussion with having, but we were going to continue the discussion on home funds. And the grant application for pool funding that I think, when is the application deadline for that? Is that this summer?
Yeah, I think we have to, I don't know when the application is due. So there's two different pool fundings. There's one that's the ARPA and then there's one that's the regular one.
But this 49 is the I think what you refer to as the regular one. Right?
Yeah, I don't know when that application is. I know we have to let them know how we want to use our funds by June
30th.
I did get a request from Greater Lawrence Community Action Council asking if we were going to allocate our funds to them this year. And I told them we had not made a decision on what we were doing with our funds. because I think we had all talked about using it for Fountain Drive. So I think it would be good to put this on the next agenda as well. So if we have an update on Fountain Drive, if we get to the point, in my opinion, if we get to, I don't know, May, and we don't have something to use it for on Fountain Drive, it might make sense to allocate it so that we don't lose it, to allocate it to Greater Lawrence. Just so we don't, I'm on a meeting. So that we don't lose it. But if we, if we can use it for something for Fountain Drive, I think we've already discussed that that's where we would want it to go.
And that, yeah. And it's,
Yeah, I think there'd be, if there is a deal there or an opportunity, I think that money would be well spent over there to bring in people who have done these type of deals on numerous times and numerous occasions. It might be good to pick their mind on it. The best way to approach it.
Do you think we could put together something in anticipation of that? I found that the very first time we used the funds a couple years ago for Greater Lawrence, it took some time for them to get, like, us the approval. And so I'm thinking maybe by March, we want to be able to put something together to send to North Shore Home to say, this is what we want to use our 49,865 for, and then figure out the application for more funds if we need it. But if we're going to try to use it for, technical assistance, like, we should start thinking about getting the narrative together for that by, I'd say, probably March.
Yes. If to the extent I can be of assistance, I'm going to have more time on my schedule over the next starting next week. So I'm happy to pitch in and focus some time on that.
I think that timeline makes sense, Lori. Do you think work needs to be done between now and if you were to put another meeting on the books for next month? Or could we just simply continue the discussion at the next meeting? I know Rob just volunteered to do some work in the meantime.
Well, no, it's pending the results of the report
Pending the
and what we decide, how we want to handle it. And if we decide to move forward, I'm happy to take the lead on it or assist in any way necessary to get it prepared as quickly as possible.
I think if we leave both items 5 and 6 on the next agenda, that'll leave it open for us to be able to have the discussion on it. And hopefully we'll have an update on Fountain Drive, and then we can move right into a discussion of the home funds.
Okay. So those two discussions will be continued for the next meeting in that case. And maybe that dovetails into the next conversation, which should be about setting up our next meeting.
yeah.
And I promise this time I will make sure to keep on top of the dates. Because last time I think I'd confused folks with the date, and I apologize for that. But should we set up for the week of the 14th?
Well, you mean meeting Tuesday, the 15th?
Yep, February 15th at 5:30.
It's fine with me.
Yeah, that's fine with me. The following week is school vacation, so that wouldn't
Yeah.
work for me.
Understood. Okay, so February 15th, 5:30. I'm gonna probably assume that it's probably gonna be a remote meeting then, unless we hear some really good news about the pandemic. But I think we should probably plan on having remote at that point.
Yeah, I think we should. I think we're pretty much encouraging that.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, if folks want to adjourn, could we get a motion?
Well, I move we adjourn.
A second.
Okay. Dick, yay or nay?
Richard Valancourt, yes.
Thank you, Laurie.
Yes, Lori Burzlow.
George,
Yeah, George Kaler, yes.
Roger,
Roger Lawson, yes.
Joan,
Joan Fitzgibbons, yes.
Rob,
Rob Bernard, yes.
and Chris G is also a yes. Thank you. So unanimous vote. Meeting is adjourned. Thank
All right.
you.
Thank
See
you.
all. Yeah.
Thank you.
Have a good night.